From the Digital Media Center, on the campus of Southern Oregon University in Ashland, Oregon. This is Ramping Up Your English, an educational program for intermediate level English language learners. Here's your host for Ramping Up Your English, John Letz.
Welcome to Ramping Up Your English. This is episode 117. We take a content-based approach to helping you reach higher levels of English proficiency. Our thematic unit is Native Americans. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our unit on Native Americans. It's taken us from prehistoric times through incredible violence and loss to current day conditions. Now, during these unit episodes, we explored the English language functions, the language functions that are used for such a vast area of study of culture and history, study of the shifts in power and wealth that took place. Some of this instruction was embedded in the various episodes, and some is presented on the episode web pages that are available at letscreate.org. Now, in the area of content, we have seen European and Eurocentric domination sweep from east to west across the North American continent, and finally honing in here in Southern Oregon, the region in which this series is produced. Now, while my experience is in teaching elementary school, much of this slog through history would not be appropriate for young children. This raw, open-eyed look at American Indian history is more appropriate for older students. And it's not what I would have taught my kids in elementary school. Now, there is nonetheless a lot for younger children and preteens to learn about America's first people. And I found that many aspects of Native American life are of keen interest to students of this age. While prehistory is a good content, the prehistoric kind of things they did, the full story of colonization in all of its aspects would likely be disturbing. Now, the natural interest of children in Native Americans can best be utilized in learning about the everyday aspects of American Indian life. So kids want to know. They want to know things. They want to know, for example, what people ate. They want to know what kinds of houses they lived in and how they built them. They want to know about the tools they made. They want to know about all kinds of things with their family content and all the things that Native Americans did on a daily basis. That's what they want to know. And these topics are only a few of the many Native American Indian topics that rivet the attention of children and foster a thirst for more knowledge. One of these topics is the making and use of baskets. We'll take a look at that in this episode with this video. I want to share with you a small object that means a lot to me in many ways. This little basket was made by a member of the Coushatta people in Louisiana. Through numerous moves through the South, the Midwest, the East Coast, and the West Coast, I have never lost this little treasure. Now, I've had this basket since I was 7 years old, and here's how I came to possess it, and how it changed my mind about American Indians. My mother was a den mother in the Cub Scouts, and our den joined others in a trip to the Coushatta Indian Reservation near Jennings, Louisiana. I still have the memory of the woman who wove this basket right in front of my eyes. You can see that pine needles were used in the making of this basket. My mother paid $2 for the basket, but the value of this basket went far beyond the purchase price. You see, at the age of 7, I had only seen American Indians in movies, and they were always shown as violent and savage people who attacked innocent people on wagon trains and farms and ranches. In my young mind at that time, this defined Indians. Yet the woman who wove this basket was kind and reminded me of my grandmother, whom I revered. This simple experience shattered the view I had at that time of Native Americans. The carefully planted, simplistic vision of American Indians just no longer had a place in my mind after this. At the tender age of 7, I found out that there was much more to learn. A world inhabited by women who did magical things with materials like pine needles. Perhaps that explains why my attachment 60 years later still exists for this little basket. Let's see what kind of treasures might be inside. Well, these were all added after I bought it, of course, or I should say my mom bought it. But there's some seashells that I've added over time, and looks like for some reason there's a button in here. So little treasures, but the really big treasure and important treasure is the basket itself. Now, this cherished basket opened my eyes to seeing a larger truth about people who were not like me, and yet were like me in many ways. Baskets serve vital functions for people who made and used them. Let's explore more about Native American baskets in this video. Native people needed to carry things on their seasonal rounds, and baskets provided a means of carrying that didn't weigh people down. Made from materials found in their homelands, baskets provided storage for food and other essentials. They had practical uses, but also were made to reflect artistic values. Siletz Takelma Stephanie Craig says a basket can tell you a lot about the person who wove it.
We weave everything into baskets. That's one thing, is that you can look at a basket and it can tell you the story of the life of the weaver. You can't buy traditional materials, you have to gather them. And so if you have nice materials that you've taken care of and that have worked really good, they've been worked down really well, then you know that the person has taken a lot of time or have traveled very far to get them. You can look at old baskets and you can tell if the weaver's right-handed or left-handed. You can almost get it down to where the tribe they were from. Materials, if it's not materials that are from that area, indigenous or native to that area, they were traded in, and you could only trade if you had something else to trade. So whether it be other materials, food, or tools, or money itself. So it can give you a sense of their social status. But a basket can tell you basically everything, almost everything you want to know about that person's life. If they were in mourning, if they were on their moon, if they were man or woman, right or left-handed, if they were influenced by their in-laws.
Elementary students in Ashland learn about baskets from Takelma elder Agnes Baker Pilgrim.
Also in this is the bear grass, which is on top of the mountains. It too has to be burned. And they used to tell me, the old ones way back, that you have to pick it before July the 15th. You can weave it in your work, but when it dries, it'll kind of pucker up. So they pick it after July the 15th, and you pick it, it's green, so you have to leave it out until it gets real light, like it's in these things here. And that's the bear grass, and it's held together with spruce roots. In this cap, the black is the five-fingered ferns that you see along creeks and streams. They call it the maidenhair fern or the five-fingered fern, and that's the black in this cap. The red in my cap here is the beargrass that is dyed. The white, this whitey light stuff in here is beargrass, and it's dyed with the inside bark of the alder tree to make it red.
Heather Cleaver shared baskets made by Native American weavers at the Salmon Festival in Ashland.
So we came down with historic baskets today, and a lot of these are from the tradition of this area, going down through the Klamath River area and along the coastline even. So you'll find these baskets everywhere from the Taloa and Tututni up through Siletz and Grand Ronde. You'll find these traditions, and all these are actually 100 years old or older, and they're made of local materials. So beargrass, alder, hazel, all of those sort of materials.
Now here's a basket that I made. I just left it like that. What do you think these little slats are? What tree are they from? Starts with a C.
Chestnut?
Nope.
Cedar?
Thank you. That's a cedar. That's a cedar tree. And I made that a long time back. And this too is from the cedar tree. It's a base bracelet. These little baskets are cedar also, little baskets made out of cedar that I made a long time ago.
Baskets could be large and very strong, like these used to build mound cities during the Mississippian culture. Tekelma elder Grandma Aggie explained the use of other baskets made by her people.
These are hazel sticks, and these are called trinket baskets, okay? This one also is a trinket basket. This basket, I call it a Mrs. cap. This is all these caps here. This is the only one I can work in. It's a work cap. They had special ones made that you can work in. The one I got on and the one that my girl Sally has on over there, and Nadine, you don't work in those. Those are spiritual caps. I don't work in them.
Heather Cleaver finds that local baskets combine tradition with ways to sell baskets to non-Indians. Regardless of the objectives, these baskets are authentic works of art.
There was sort of an entrepreneurial bend to a lot of these that I wanted to kind of show you, which is that you'll have traditional designs that you see here, like with a snake nose and a quail top knot, but you'll see that weavers were trying to get people to purchase some of their basket items, and so they would incorporate things like Z's in there, which were super familiar to people who would possibly be coming off of trains or coming through to tour to look at what they would call, the last of the civilization or that sort of thing. And so I wanted to kind of mention just how amazing it was that they were able to kind of figure out the market and sell, which I think is brilliant considering everything they were going through. And then also I wanted to show just sort of some of the artistry. So this actually is a representation of flying geese. So you would see them migrating, but it's extraordinarily abstract. And I think too, when you're looking at things like this, where you're having to count sticks, you're having to look at your materials, and then coming up with this incredible abstract representation of something you find in nature is just so brilliant. So one thing that these baskets are beautiful. They're not craft, they're true like artisanship that's going on here using natural material, and then also just you have to be so mathematically inclined and capable of seeing things in a different way.
Pat McMillan of the Fable Museum in Klamath Falls speaks of the Native American baskets in their collection.
Baskets are lightweight and versatile. The intended use determined the style, weave, and materials used, as well as what plants were available. Twining appears to be the oldest weaving style. However, coiled and plaited forms have been found, and some artifacts date to 9,000 years ago. Colors and design were often symbolic to each tribal unit.
Not all weaving resulted in baskets. Woven sandals were found in Cougar Mountain Cave. woven over 10,000 years ago.
Plants also provided shoes, matting, bags, and netting.
In the Northeast, wampum belts were woven, physical records of agreements between two parties. Basket weaving was more universal.
This basket is real old, made out of, this is over hundreds of years old. I have a basket that I didn't bring, and I don't try to bring it very often. When they used to, it's way over 150 years old. And they used to cook in a basket. How could you cook in a basket? Yes, thank you. Hot rocks. You have to heat these round rocks, and you got to go pick them up along the river. You got to make sure that when they're hot, that they don't explode. So it's got to be a nice, solid, good rock that they used to pick up, put acorns in here, have big wooden spoons, and they'd stir it. And when that rock got cold, take it out, put another hot one in till all this got cooked. That's how they cooked in a basket.
Along the Klamath River, baskets were woven from materials like pine root, bear grass, maidenhair fern, and hazel. Similar weaving techniques were shared among those tribes. Klamath tribe basket makers used many of these same materials. They gathered tules from the wetlands in their region. Tules grow in abundance in Klamath Lake. The quills from porcupine also adorned some baskets made by the Klamath. Basket makers continue their traditional art, passing down the skills and knowledge to the younger generation. The making and selling of baskets was one of the few ways that American Indians could earn money to support their families. Some of that money came from collectors who valued authentic workmanship and quality. These were readily found in California and from people on the Northwest coast. Today, museums and cultural centers make Indian baskets available to the public. Grandma Aggie shared with elementary school children the practical uses that still apply.
This is real old. Long time ago, they used to pick huckleberries. You ever pick huckleberries? Huh? Well, when you pick them, did the little leaves stick on your hands and get in the bucket with the berries? Yeah. Well, then they put them in here, and then they would shake them until the little leaves all fell out.
Children got to learn about basket-making materials, weaving methods, and various uses. So when they inspected the baskets on display, they had a greater appreciation for what goes into Native American basket making and why these baskets are important. Heather Cleaver says that land use policy can encourage this tradition if it reflects the needs of Native American basket makers.
We have to be aware of land use management policy here, especially with use of sprays or other sort of ways that land is being managed right now, so that traditional gatherers and others are still able to pick this stuff up, because to make baskets there's a lot of mouth use, there's a lot of hand use, and so if we want to watch artists continue the tradition of basketry like this, we need to make certain that we're not poisoning them or having other issues of that sort, or making access difficult, or like I said, using sprays or fear of drift or any of that sort of thing.
The making of baskets and their importance to American Indian life is only one topic that can feed the curiosity of children and older students alike. We'll feature more topics like that in future episodes. So now, let's do some language work with dependent clauses. No, not that clause. First, let's review the function of adverbs. They can tell how or when an action takes place, so they modify a verb. For that modification, a prepositional phrase can do the job of an adverb. They tell when, how, or where an action takes place. Here are some examples. With great speed, with attention to detail, after harvest, before using, on the shore, in the lodge. Notice none of these are sentences. They don't have subjects and predicates. Here are some examples of showing where: at the wetland areas, in a dry place, in their lodge, at their winter village. We can ramp up to another form of this function by using a dependent clause. No, not Santa Claus, but almost as magical. So, what is a clause? Well, a dependent clause has a subject and a predicate, yet a dependent clause is not a sentence. A dependent clause is part of a sentence. A dependent clause is part of a sentence, but it cannot stand alone as a sentence. It depends on another clause that can stand alone. A dependent clause is also called a subordinate clause because it modifies the main clause, the independent clause. We have already learned about phrases. They don't have subjects and predicates. A clause, though, has a subject and predicate. Let's look at some information from the featured video about baskets. Basket material must be harvested at the right time. Materials must be processed, and materials are used to weave the basket. And we can use a phrase or a clause to communicate when materials can be gathered. At the right time, this is a phrase, or when the materials are ready. Now this is a clause. The materials is the subject of the clause, and are ready is the predicate. The phrase and the clause are both correct, but the dependent clause can carry more information. Let's see if you can identify the phrase and the clause. Prior to weaving, the materials must be processed. When the materials are processed, they can be used. Prior to weaving is a phrase. When the materials are processed is a dependent clause. Both depend on the remainder of the sentence. Let's try this one. At the right time, materials can be gathered. When they are ready, materials can be harvested. Materials can be harvested is a complete thought. It's an independent clause. When they are ready is a dependent clause or subordinate clause, and it tells when or under which conditions, and it does have a subject and a predicate. At the right time performs the same function, but it's not a dependent clause. It's not a clause at all. It's a prepositional phrase. The clause when they are ready cannot stand as a complete sentence because it's not a complete thought. It's dependent or it's subordinate to the rest of the sentence. Materials can be gathered. Now we see the same pattern. Materials must be processed. That's a complete thought. That's an independent clause. In the first example, prior to weaving, that tells you a lot, but it has no subject and predicate. So it is a phrase. It's a prepositional phrase rather than a clause. Now the part at the bottom, before weaving can begin, this is a clause because it has a subject and a predicate. Weaving is the subject and can begin is the predicate. So before weaving can begin, the materials must be processed. This puts together two important things. The materials must be processed. That's an independent clause. But when you put in before weaving can begin, that tells you when. That's functioning as an adverb, but it's a clause because it has a subject and a predicate. Again, the materials must be processed. This is the main clause or independent clause. Before weaving can begin. This is the dependent clause or subordinate clause. It doesn't state a complete thought. So, why use a dependent clause? A dependent clause can communicate in detail about an action. A dependent clause forms a complex sentence when used with an independent clause. These clauses are known as adverbial clauses since they modify the verb in the independent clause. Now, forming complex sentences is considered a more advanced skill when speaking or writing English. Comprehending complex sentences is essential when reading or listening to English. So let's review this whole business of dependent clauses. Dependent clauses modify independent clauses in complex sentences. Dependent clauses can serve as adverbs in adverbial clauses. Dependent clauses are subordinate to independent clauses. Dependent clauses cannot stand alone as a sentence. There are more uses for dependent clauses than what we've gone over today. We'll revisit dependent or subordinate clauses, and we'll introduce other ways they can be used in future episodes. And now a little bit more about our content theme of Native Americans. So now we move away from the chronological history of Native Americans and focus on some of the ways they found to survive and thrive in their surroundings. When you consider that Native Americans, or American Indians, and their ancestors achieved all that they achieved over thousands of years, it's not surprising that you want to learn more about it, and so do children of all ages. And that is what we'll do in future episodes. We will have more on the different aspects of daily life of Native Americans in future episodes. Now, you can watch this episode of Ramping Up Your English on archive.org/details/RogueTV. There's a link from my website as well to the same place. It's at letscreate.org. You just select the Native American unit, and then you click on the episode 117 page, and that brings you to the episode 117 page. That's how that works. And lots of resources are there for you on that page. I want to thank my director, Cosmo Tigato, and my crew, Norman Mainwaring, for mastering the technical feats that made this program possible. I also want to thank you, our viewers, for helping make this program an award winner. Join me next time for Ramping Up Your English. I'm John Letz.
You've been watching Ramping Up Your English, a support program for intermediate level English language learners. Learn more. Visit our website at letscreate.org. You can also watch or download today's program at archive.org/details/RogueTV. Join us next time on RVTV Voices for Ramping Up Your English.